So whenever it comes to querying with AdonisJS, there's actually a number of different ways you can go about it. Today we're going to be covering the basic static methods directly off of the model, and then we'll dig into the query builder in the next lesson. So to start out with, let's go ahead and get a new method set up on our topics controller, public async index for the HTTP context contract. There we go. Let's just grab the response out of the HTTP context, and let's bring up a route for this really quick. So let's jump into our routes, do route.get/topics, topics_controller.index as topics.index. All right, cool. So first, let's go ahead and dive into the documentation and take a look at the options that we have. So again, all of these methods that we're going to be covering here today are static methods directly available off of the model in itself, meaning that we don't need to instantiate a new instance of the model in order to get access to these. We just use them directly off of the model itself. So first up, we have the all method. This is going to return back just all records within the database for the particular table that the model is associated with. So in this case here, this would return back all users within our users table. Next, we have find. So this is whenever you want to find a particular record within your table by its primary key. So in this case, if we have a user with an ID of 1, that user would be returned back. Now the result here can be null. There is a non-null version we'll cover here in a second, but if a user with a primary key of 1 cannot be found within our database, we'll get back null here instead of the actual user record. So keep that in mind going forward. The same for FindBy. The only difference here is that you're actually finding by a particular column within the table. So we can provide that column as the first argument and then the value that we want to search with. So in this case, if we had a user with an email of virk@adonisjs.com, that user would be returned back to us. If that user did not exist within our database, then we would get back null. Email here being the particular column that we want to search with. So the column name in itself will be email here. If we wanted to search against a username, we would provide username there. And then we have first. First is going to be just the first record within our database table. If there's no records within the table at all, we'll just get back null. Now, as I mentioned for these, if records cannot be found for these particular method searches, we'll get back null. There is a variation of this where we'd get back an error instead, and that particular error would be a E row not found error with a status code of 404. If we wanted that variation instead, all we need to do is suffix each of those method names with or fail. So you have FindOrFail, FirstOrFail, and FindByOrFail available to you. All of those work the exact same way as the primary static method. The only difference is how it behaves whenever it cannot find that record. So let's go ahead and take a look at each of these in the works. So let's jump back into our project here, and let's first take a look at all. So we can do topics equals await topic.all, and then let's just return this back. So return response as JSON, and let's just return it back as topics. Now, before we take a look at the responses here, I do want to note one small thing. If we take a look at the actual model name, so topics, let's grab the first one, and let's take a look at the created at column. So you'll see that this is in camel case, the same way that is defined within our model. Whenever you're working within the AdonisJS ecosystem, the column name will remain camel case or as is defined within the model itself. So if you're working with an Edge.js, controllers, services, anything of the like, it would be available to you in the same way that it's defined within the model. Now, whenever the model is sent outside of the AdonisJS ecosystem, it's going to be serialized. So it's going to run through the serialization behavior. The default behavior for AdonisJS whenever serializing a model is to convert it into snake case. We'll see that here in a second. So let's go ahead and run through an example. So I'm gonna open up Insomnia here. We have a GET request for localhost 3333/topics. If we send that off, you'll see that we get back an array of our topics with each of the columns for the particular topic at play. And those column names are all in snake case since they're serialized and outside of the AdonisJS ecosystem. And as mentioned, since we're using the all method here, we're getting back just all records within that table. So if we take a look at tables plus, we only have those 3 records. We have 1, 2, and 4, Adonis, JavaScript, and TypeScript. If we take a look at those results, we have 4, which is TypeScript, 2, which is JavaScript, and 1, which is AdonisJS. So those match. Cool. So let's go ahead and get rid of that right there. And next, let's cover find. And we can do AdonisJS equals await topic dot find, and we can provide in the AdonisJS ID there of 1. We can verify that that's the ID by jumping into our database, and you can see AdonisJS has an ID of 1. So there we go. Let's go ahead and return that back here. Let's put it as the first result. Jump back into Insomnia, kick this up again, and you'll see that we get back AdonisJS right here with the AdonisJS record as a response. Notice in this case, it's just an object, whereas in the previous case, when we were calling all, it is an array of objects. So there's a difference there. We're only getting back that one result with find, whereas we're getting back an array of results with all. But what happens if we use an ID that does not exist? So let's try plopping in 3. Remember, we had 1, 2, and 4 as our IDs there. 3 had been previously deleted. Let's go ahead and kick this off. You'll see that AdonisJS is now null. So that query there is indeed not finding a result for 3. If we wanted this to instead error out, we could do FindOrFail, give that a save, kick that off. And you'll see now we get a 404 not found error response back to us. So there's the difference there. Find when not finding a record will kick back null, whereas FindOrFail or FirstOrFail or FindByOrFail or that variation with just OrFail as a suffix there, or return back a 404 not found error if the record cannot be found in the database. Cool. So let's get rid of that. So next up we have FindBy, and then FindByOrFail is the alternative variation where it would get back an error if the result's not found. For the first argument here, we just want to provide the column name that we want to search against. So we could do ID, we could do name, we could do create an ad if we wanted to, but here we'll just do name. And let's provide AdonisJS there. So let's go ahead and kick this off with an Insomnia, and we should get back AdonisJS just like so. You could also do it by slug. Slug's going to be a very common one if you don't want to actually use the ID within your URLs. So here we have slug. Let's leave it as is with just AdonisJS as capitals. And you'll see that we get back null because the exact value cannot be found there. Notice it will need to be exact. We had capitalizations within our name, within our search, but the slug is all lowercase. So if we were to just convert this to lowercase, go ahead and send this off now. Now we get back the response. So that is one small thing to note with FindBy. And then obviously if we were to replace this with OrFail and the record could not be found, we would get back that 404 error. Okay, and then we have first, and this is going to return back the first record within our database. Kick that off. You'll see that we still get back AdonisJS, and that's because that is the first record within our database. Okay, so along the same lines of find, there's also a FindMany variation. And what this will do is we'll just take in an array of IDs and then return back the results for each of those. So we could do 1 and 2 here, and what we would get back is an array of various topics. I'm just going to replace this with FindMany there so that we know that that is the result of our FindMany. Give that a save. Let's jump back into Insomnia and kick that off. And you can see now we get back an array of the records matching each of the IDs that we provided. In this case, it's just 1 and 2. 4 is left off because we did not provide that within the array. If we were to replace 2 with 3, which does not exist within our database, kick this off, you'll see that we just get back 1. In this case, we don't get back null because that wouldn't make sense since we're getting back an array of results matching the query. Now, if we provide an array of values that don't exist at all, so in this case 6 or 3, which don't exist within our database, kick that off, we get back an empty array. So it's worth noting that with FindMany, you won't get back null at all. Instead, you'll just get back an empty array if any values cannot be found. Or if you have a mix and match of finding records and not finding records, you'll get back just the records that could be found. All right, so there's a quick look at the various static method options that we have to query results from our database. Again, these are static methods, not the actual query builder. We'll be focusing on the query builder in the next lesson. And the query builder is what's going to allow us to really build out advanced queries, providing where statements, sorts, joins, all of that fun stuff. So we'll start taking a look at that in the next lesson. So hopefully you learned something here new today. If you did, please consider hitting the like button down below and subscribing for future lessons just like this one. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.